Mayor King, who joins me for more on what we can expect. Congressman, Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us on this holiday. We appreciate it.
Kristen, Happy New Year to you. Thank you.
I want to start off with the point that we just discussed with Stephanie, the fact that these protesters are gathering at 9 p.m. at Union Square. Is New York prepared for the sheer volume of people and the protesters who are going to be out tonight? What's your level of confidence?
Yeah, Kristen, the NYPD is prepared for anything. The only question I would have, are they going to be allowed to do what they have to do to keep the protesters from taking over? During the demonstrations 2 weeks ago, where they were allowed to take over the Brooklyn Bridge, the West Side Highway, main streets, that was not allowed in the past. So if the police are allowed to stop them when they're interfering, yes, these cops can handle anything. They've been dealing for the last 13 years with all sorts of counterterrorism threats at the New Year's Eve festivities. They've dealt with demonstrations. They can handle it, and I have tremendous confidence in Commissioner Bill Bratton.
And Congressman, how would you rate the level of tension right now? We know that Mayor Bill de Blasio met with union leaders, police union leaders last night. I've been reading a lot of reports that suggest that tensions remain. Is that accurate? Did anything tangible come from that meeting last night?
Christian, my understanding is that the tensions are still there. I know a lot of police officers. My father was a cop in the city. I was at the wake and funeral last week of Officer Ramos. And no, the tensions between the police and the mayor are the worst I've ever seen in all the years I've been in New York. And I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I was born and raised in New York City. And many of my constituents work in New York City. I do a lot of work with the NYPD as far as counterterrorism. No, the police officers feel that Mayor de Blasio turned against them early on. With the Garner case, the way he tried to portray it as being a racial matter, when the fact is it was an African-American chief, an African-American sergeant on the scene, African-American businessman. What went wrong or didn't go wrong, it had nothing to do with race. And they felt that Mayor de Blasio jumped in and tried to make it a racial issue, or it kept it going as a racial issue, saying the cops had to be retrained. You're talking about the best police department in the country. So they just don't feel that Mayor de Blasio has their back, and he has to work to restore that.
But Congressman, as you know, there are so many people throughout New York who are still upset by the Garner case. What can you say to ease tensions on this New Year's Eve and heading into 2015? What needs to happen?
I think leaders have to come forward and put this in perspective. Last year, the police made 230,000 misdemeanor arrests alone. The person who died was Eric Garner, and that was done, again, that had nothing to do with race. That was, again, it was an African-American sergeant, was a top officer down there, to show that that was an aberration, which had nothing to do with race. That the NYPD is only 44% white. It's clearly majority and minority. There's, I think, 58 different languages spoken in the police department. The police department wants to reach out, but it's going to take efforts on both sides. And quite frankly, I know I'm on MSNBC, I think the less that Al Sharpton has to say about running the police department or interfering with the police department, the better everyone would be. Because I believe the decent people in both communities, in the NYPD and the African-American, minority communities, do want to find a way to work together. But I think better leadership is needed. Certainly Al Sharpton should not be involved.
All right, well, and of course, Al Sharpton does have a show on MSNBC, so I will stay out of that discussion. But let me ask you about a controversy that is brewing. The third-ranking Republican in the House, Congressman Steve Scalise, has apologized after revelations that he spoke to a white supremacist group back in 2002. He says he wasn't aware that the group was a white supremacist group, but it was headed by former KKK leader David Duke. Should he hold on to his leadership position, Congressman, or is this something that he should say, you know what, maybe I should step down?
Christian, based on what we know so far, I say that he should stay on. I know Cedric Richmond, who's the African-American congressman from Louisiana, has stepped forward to defend Steve Scalise. I've never heard any hint at all of any racism, bias, or bigotry. And my understanding is that group is also anti-Catholic. Steve is Catholic himself. He's a very strong practicing Catholic. So if he says it was a mistake and it was inadvertent and he didn't realize, the full content of what they stood for, at this stage I say we have to believe him, because there's no other evidence out there. Usually when there is something to it, you have other incidents come forward. People say this happened, that happened. So far as everyone who dealt with him, including Governor Bobby Jindal, again, Congressman Richmond, others, they say that there's no bias or bigotry. I've never seen it. I've always found him to be a man of his word. So as of now, I would say this was a scheduling error. Yeah.
Let me challenge you on that point, though, because the person who invited him to speak at that conference was his next door neighbor who was one of David Duke's key strategists. So do you buy that excuse that he didn't know who he was speaking to?
Again, I think we have to wait and see. I think that, again, if more facts do come out, Steve Scalise will have to explain them. Again, what his relationship with his neighbor was, how active David Duke still was with that organization. I don't know. This was 12 years ago in Louisiana. I try to keep track of what's going on in New York. But again, listen, you're raising a valid point, Kristen. I'm just saying, and obviously speaking to a group like this was wrong. Steve Scalise has admitted this. If there's going to be other factors involved, then he will have to address them. But as of this moment, I'm saying no. I think that he has proven himself to be a hard-working member of Congress, and he reaches out, works with everyone. And again, there's always rumors about this person and that person in Congress. I've never heard anything bad about Steve Scalise until a story broke the other day, and he's giving us his explanation. So I believe we owe him the benefit of the doubt on this unless more comes out.
And let me ask you quickly about the broader question here. You have this controversy with Congressman Scalise, and you also have Congressman Grimm stepping down as he faces serious legal troubles. This is not exactly the way I would think that the Republicans want to begin the new year as they get set to take over Congress in 2015. Does this harm the Republican brand as they get set to take over Congress?
It's a short-term hit, but if we get beyond it, I think John Boehner is showing leadership. You know, there is going to be a special election coming up in Michael Grimm's district. I think we should elect a solid Republican to that seat, one we can be proud of. And as far as Steve Scalise, if nothing else comes out, I think this will be behind us, and it'll be up to John Boehner to lead us forward. But obviously, you always want things to go more smoothly. This isn't the most smooth beginning, but again, you know, life isn't easy. You have to overcome the tough ones. And I have a lot of faith in John Boehner to move us forward.
All right, Congressman Peter King, thank you so much, and again, have a very happy New Year. We really appreciate it.
Happy New Year, Kristen. Good to talk to you.
Thanks. Well, one place where the weather will be nice at midnight, Honolulu, where President Obama and the First Family are